Welcome back to Memos to the President. Today we're talking about another memo we're going to release from the Special Competitive Studies Project. Here with my colleagues Ryan and Diana, welcome. The topic of the memo is really the future of work and the future of education and how in the age of AI all these things will be transformed. So before we talk about the memo, I have a tradition of asking our guests to talk to us a little bit about their background and to tell us what did they do before SCSP and how they got here. So Ryan, over to you.
Sure. I actually have a very non-linear path to here. I actually have my undergraduate degrees in youth ministry. I was a youth pastor for years. I moved from that to the government to actually work at the DoD for 7 years as a historian. From there, I worked at the White House at the Executive Secretary's office, then to NSCAI, where I worked on workforce issues, then to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and made my way here at SCSP. And some of my proudest moments were in government, and I'm so happy I served for 11 years.
Thank you, Ryan. Diana?
So I would also say that I have a nonlinear path, but it's been consistent in that I've always been interested in the future of work.
Right.
So I started my career doing occupational employment projections at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, super wonky, but that really sparked my passion and curiosity for what does the future look like and how can we make sure we're prepared. So I got smart with some additional education and really leaned into being an economist, focusing on how are we driving innovation and growth in our economy, and that to me comes down to tech and talent. And so I've really focused on tech and talent for a long time, understanding the intersectionality and how the technological transformation we've seen starting in, say, 2007 sparked one revolution, if you will, in skills demand, and now we're seeing another with AI. So it's just been an interesting time to be studying the future of skills demand and how AI is transforming
Absolutely.
that.
I think this is really a unique time in human history because I think we have never had a situation that a technology will transform so profoundly the future of work and education. Let's talk about that moment first. Why is this such a unique moment in human history? And why AI is that technology that is going to change it?
So I'll start.
Yeah.
So I think there is this question of why is this different? Is this different?
Right.
We seem to acknowledge, especially in the economist community, that this is a general purpose technology. What there is not consensus on is how it's going to transform work or when. And to me, I think it's becoming more and more obvious every day that this really is very different. Before it was a slower diffusion of the technology in society. It really enabled a more skills-based or technological skills-based demand, and this is democratizing skills. It's flipping what it means to be a high-skill worker on its head, and you can see how it's already impacting higher-skilled jobs in a very different way. So, and the diffusion of this technology and the development of advancements in AI have been so rapid relative to other GPTs that you're seeing a completely different impact on labor market dynamics.
Exactly. Ryan?
I think we have, this is a great time to go back to history. There are precedences with electricity. If you think about the turn of the century, New England, the coastal, the whaling industry went out of business because of industrialization and because of electricity. Lamplighters, candle makers, they really went, new skills had to be replaced as we were industrialized. I'd also say that at the turn of the 20th century, 75% of America was rural. You were engaged in a farm or you lived on a farm. Right. We are at 25% and even shrinking because of the jobs are changing, change are moving. And AI is another chance for us to reinvent ourselves as a nation.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think, and unlike maybe previous technological revolutions, this is a fast one. Just because, I mean, technology exists, we have access to it. And so it's going to, I think, transform much,
It seems
much
like
faster.
every day there's a new story,
Exactly.
a new advancement, a new model that's being deployed.
Right. I also think, and I think we've talked a lot here at SCSP, is that I still think we don't take this as a serious item, that how much impact is going to have in job displacement. I mean, when you look at major companies, I think they all announce that they're not going to hire more people. They're going to even get rid of people because now, you know, some of these machines, some of these models can really replace humans. And so I think we have to really approach this with utmost seriousness. from a Washington perspective. And I think your memo goes towards that. So let's talk a little bit about the memo. Let's talk about the objectives you have in the memo. Let's start with you, Ryan, first, and then over to you, Dana.
So the objectives is, if we believe AI is such a transformative technology, we need to accept it as that. And so for the United States to be a global leader, we need to make sure that our workforce has the skills necessary, and that includes our educational system, that includes workforces, that includes government and industry, and that includes really a wide gamut of jobs that are required to know this technology, and we need to treat it as such. And so taking it seriously and making it a priority, because a lot of times what you'll see are folks who don't take it as seriously, and you pay the price for not taking it seriously. So establishing global leadership, talent is the critical crux. It's the thing that will help us drive innovation forward, regardless of technology around. If you have the best people, you'll get the best results.
Right. Dana?
I think that's spot on, and I'll just add that to me, we need to leverage AI to help solve some of the perennial challenges that AI is going to create. And I think that we're in a really unique moment where AI can help transform education and workforce development. So the objective is not only we need to still be the beacon for the world's best and brightest talent. We need to shore up our talent pipelines and make sure that our entire workforce is AI ready. It's these perennial problems that a lot of reports always just leave it at, let's invest more in STEM, and that's just not going to cut it anymore. We need to really roll our sleeves up and say, how can we leverage technology? We have the solutions. We know what we need to do. We've studied the problem. How can we leverage and harness the power of AI to help execute on some of these solutions? And in a way that allows us to think about what our institutions need to look like. And this is very much a great time to be having a policy conversation about that.
It's a great point. I mean, talking about relooking our institutions, I think the first place we need to look at is our educational system, because I think the educational system was made for the industrial age. But if you're entering an AI age, then I think you need a different educational institution. So I know you talk about the future of education in your memo. So Dana, can you just tell us what you guys were thinking about this and what was your recommendation?
I think, the rise of agentic AI, the rise of custom tutors, the idea of personalized assessment and customized education is not new. There just hasn't been a ton of take-up on it for a variety of reasons, and we need to tackle that head-on. We need to find a way to systematically integrate AI as an educational tool into classrooms, and there's a lot of different dimensions of that, but it's time to have a harder conversation on what does it mean for school districts to be able to procure these technologies, what are the standards associated with these technologies, and most importantly, it cannot be only the responsibility of state and local schools to get after this. It is a shared responsibility. So what is the role of industry as an education provider, as a partner to school districts? And they are, but in one district at a time, and that's not going to get you at scale. What we write in the memo is that we need all classrooms AI enabled by 2030.
Right. Ryan?
I would say that a common phrase I would hear in my time at the Pentagon, people would say if they wanted to be critical, is that they're organized to win the Cold War.
Right.
And we need the government to be organized for the 21st century.
Right.
And we have hundreds of STEM programs across different departments and agencies that do very similar things or duplicative. And for us to organize successfully is to actually identify those and make them more effective where they are. And that includes Department of Energy, that includes labor, that includes defense, that includes every department that has a STEM initiative. It would be wise for us to understand and then do assessment and think about how we can be most direct with these programs. Because if we just do a thin layer across the organization, that's not going to help us compete.
Right.
It's not enough of a scale and scope that we need.
Right. Talk about the scale and scope, but we also need to talk about people that are actually right now working in departments and agencies, not just at the federal level, but at the state level, and how AI can help in doing their job. So one of the initiatives we have here at the SCSP is really launching a course with Coursera in how can Gen AI help federal government civil servants really improve their skills. So can you talk a little bit about the need for reskilling and retraining?
I'll start. I think the need is more urgent than ever. I think AI is coming. and that we can't be afraid of that. We can't ban it. We can't pretend like it's not. It's about leveraging these tools, again, as part of the solution. All I hear, especially from my time at the Department of Defense, everyone is overworked. There's not enough hours in the day. And there is a solution, or at least a partial solution for that, and that is leveraging AI tools to make bureaucracy go faster, as you say, and that's quite right. And I think what we're seeing now with the new administration is really a push to say, no kidding, it's time to modernize our software and IT infrastructure, and it's time to start leveraging the tools available to us to make government run better. And I think if you are sitting in a department or agency that is not empowering you to leverage AI, you need to take that and be a change agent, because that transformation is going to happen. And so it really is important for the federal workforce to empower themselves and to upskill and say, how can I use these tools to improve my workflow and my quality of work?
Right.
Everyone at this table served time in the Department of Defense, and how many of our tasks were repetitive that could have been done with some help.
Right.
I would have loved to have an assistant help me plan a trip, to fill out a form that is a routine form. What does the government do well? Processes. So what is AI most helpful? Understanding processes and actually doing repetitive tasks. So in my mind, these are real advancements that can help improve people's lives and jobs so they can focus on the job they're doing, because we all get tasks that are outside our scope, but are necessary. And so to get an assistant, that's something that help us, particularly as we're in an environment where we want to be more effective and help civil servants be more effective at their jobs.
Right. I mean, one of the stories I have is that when we worked at the NSCI, the AI Commission, we were exposed to these new tools, collaborative environment, whether it was Microsoft or Google, and I didn't know what that is. Just because in government, the systems that we use are so mundane and old that I think when you leave that and you see the world and you see like, wow, this is a huge difference. So I think probably we have never had a situation before in which a technology outside of government is so advanced, and yet you cannot use it to make your work faster, better, etc. So it's an incredible situation right now in which you can do more with your iPhone, but then you have to leave your iPhone outside when you go to your job, and then face a computer that reminds you of 1990s computer, and start, doing your work in that computer or in that environment. So I think this is a really difficult situation that it has to change.
And you could imagine other places where AI tools can better your career advancement, right? There's a platform called Gig Eagle, for example. And this is just one of many where you're able to match job opportunities quickly on demand. And could you imagine a government where you can actually have the right talent in the right place at the right time, where you can actually customize professional military education, where you can actually do more things faster across the entire talent management spectrum? It's not just improving workflow and process, but there's so much opportunity, and I think we need to lean into that.
I think there's so many places where SCSP can fill that role. I know there's a lot of fear. If you're a government bureaucrat, you're thinking about all these different considerations.
Yeah, of course.
But we are former Gubbies.
Yeah.
And we have been in these positions, and I think that's a way for us to educate and help people understand how these can help your job, because I think it's a question mark is how will it help?
Yeah.
So being practical, giving examples is where we can really help fill that void.
But Ryan, when you're in an isolated environment, you don't know all the tools that exist to make your life easier. I remember when we were editing the final report of NSCI, there were 50 people online editing at the same time. Something unimaginable inside the government, because in the government, I would have to probably walk that document to 50 people one by one, and then get back that feedback and incorporate it in one document.
And make sure the lawyers see it.
And make sure lawyers see it. But I remember with NSCI, it was midnight, we were running out of clock, and we needed to submit the final report, and I saw 50 people on the document, which ultimately the document became really, really slow, as you can imagine, because even these models have limitations. But the fact that all of them were editing at the same time, and lawyers were there too, to make sure that the edits were fine, for me, was an eye-opening moment.
I think that's incredibly impactful. I was just thinking about how My dissertation took almost 2 years, if I recall, to clear Army review. And how many people have been stuck in this limbo where they can't move their workflow forward? They can't get things done because we're waiting, we're waiting on the process to unfold.
Yeah, incredible. Okay, let's talk about, Ryan, you talked a little bit about the STEM and all the programs we have now to support STEM. But I feel like AI is questioning everything about STEM, coding, you name it, right? If somebody asked me 3 years ago, hey, what should I go and study? I was go like coding, no question there, right? We were at the peak, computers were at the peak of their capabilities and power. Companies were doing fine. Coding was sort of like the skill to have, right? But not anymore because these AI models are completely changing the landscape. So Diana, do you want to talk about like how we redefine the STEM stack?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this since really ChatGPT became live in late 2022, and you can already see some initial labor market dynamics in sectors like tech and information, and how demand for just plain software developers has really been waning. It's really about what can you do with AI, so it's AI plus. And that really got me thinking, does the construct we have of STEM as we know it make a lot of sense going forward? If we're going to rethink our institutions, if we're going to rethink education and workforce policy, if we believe, and I do, that AI is going to transform the workforce in a different way than previous GPTs, what does the paradigm shift associated with that look like? Right. And for me, it really is about, you're going to have that top tier exquisite talent, that PhD talent, that R&D talent. That is still an important, critical part of our innovation workforce. But that mid-tier practitioner level that we thought of as the general STEM workforce, and you see that it's evolved a science and engineering workforce, the skilled technical workforce. People realize that the STEM construct doesn't quite fit for all the things. It really was a Sputnik era NDEA 1.0 construct. So people are, there's an appetite for an NDEA 2.0, and what does that look like?
I know somebody that wrote that.
Yeah,
like it right here.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to hear your thoughts on this too, but I'll just quickly say, to me, it suggests that we should evolve our thinking in what the STEM paradigm of tomorrow will look like, and AI plus X being a big part of it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts too.
I mean, universities are on the cutting edge, and they're feeling this the most.
Right.
We were just at UT Knoxville in October, and they now have a stackable certificate where students can come in and you customize your degree based on where you think you want to go. Right. And it's across majors. That's the beauty here, is because AI is going to touch all the majors, it's kind of breaking down these walls between the business majors, the engineering majors, between the IR majors, and universities are responding in kind. Mm-hmm. We went to Dartmouth just a couple weeks ago, and they have a lab there where students from different degrees, you can use exquisite tools to help your idea and actually start to give some seed fund. If you have an idea to start a business, they'll help you out. And to me, that's really where universities can start to adapt, to do those degrees that are or certificates that are adaptable. And I think also what we might have to get used to is relearning a lot. And understanding, like, it's not just one degree you printed and it's just on a wall. Right. It's very painful for someone who got a PhD. We're going to continue to learn. I won't tell my wife. Yeah. But that is something we really have to think about. I'm still learning. I'm still learning. I'm a history major. I read my PhD, but I'm learning these tools. And so, as a society, for us to continue to learn is a good thing.
I also think that the notion that you will go to college for 4 years is going to change.
100%.
Completely.
Time compression, knowledge, they've all changed.
But here's the thing, is we need institutional reform to help make that happen.
Absolutely.
Because I do not believe that our federal student aid system is set up to incentivize that change.
Yeah. No, this would mean a major revamp of the whole education system.
Well, and community colleges are playing a key role in that now. The community colleges are the underrated hero of the American innovation ecosystem. They are so responsive to needs around their local communities, and they will bring in local experts a lot faster than a 4-year college will, because of the structures there. Right. Once you start incentivizing those community colleges and actually funding and actually helping people who are in their career and want to make a career jump, where are you going to go? You're going to go to a local community because you have kids, you've got a family, you've got obligations, you've got a job. it's no longer the case. Now you need to make those career jumps, and it's the perfect jumping off point are community colleges.
Right.
I love that. I am so passionate about community colleges and couldn't agree more with your thoughts. And it really is about the skilled technical workforce and industry coming in and saying, we need people now that have skills that we can't find. And community colleges have been a ready and willing partner in a really fascinating way where they haven't been seen as the mainstream part of our post-secondary education system. And industry is saying, we need to shake this up a little bit. And you see more industry partnerships, which is exactly what we need to have in order to really move some of these ideas about stackable credentials. And let's let industry help us invent what we need in terms of skills-based credentialing and skills-based hiring.
Right. I mean, you have organized a lot of roundtables on AI plus careers. If you step back and think about some of the conversations, because you had amazing guests from private sector, government, any story that really stuck with you as an eye-opening like story from these individuals?
For me, we just had a AI plus careers. And this is for everyone who might not be familiar with these events. They are a monthly series where we bring thought leaders into the room to have a conversation on a topic about AI and the future of work. It's a safe space for us to all consider these really hard questions and what it means for policy. So we just did one on education, and we had the NSF and we had Code.org come in.
National Science Foundation.
National Science Foundation, yes. And it was really interesting to hear the perspective of the National Science Foundation, who in a lot of ways is the agency leading out front on AI education and implementing a lot of our programming on workforce development in that space. And just hearing the uncertainty, that there is just so much uncertainty out there, and what are the role of AI institutes? And it seemed like even he was trying to make sense of all of the different funding streams and what was going to be available and what the different roles and responsibilities are and how it's all going to play out. So what's really fascinating to me is when you hear people come in and they share a perspective and they don't actually have all the answers, and it really is an opportunity for us to help work together to shape that conversation.
Right. What about you, Ryan?
I would go back to OpenAI came and Philippe came, and he didn't have a background in AI either.
Right.
But he really owned it and said, I'm going to learn this technology. And I'm stunned at the macro level. A lot of these folks didn't originate from this.
Right.
And I guess that's sort of an inspiring thing, that these tools are so accessible.
Right. Which I think everybody should recognize and know, that you don't have to have that background.
Correct.
You know?
That's right. And I think that's the through line to me. And that's the glimmer of hope here. It's like, this is accessible. It flattens accessibility.
Right.
And I think that's the glimmer of hope. That's what I tell my sons anyway.
Right.
That this is available to you, and I want you the best for you, so we're going to learn these. So we set you up to go on to do greater things than I did.
Right. My last question is, I asked this question to all my guests, and Ryan, you travel to university a lot. You're a grad student. You're looking to move to Washington, get a job in one of the federal agencies. Why would you do that? I mean, you both have done it, but why would you tell to somebody who's not here why they should do this?
Some of my greatest memories of my professional experience were in the federal government. I give a story that I was up until 2 a.m. printing out talking point cards for the president with friends of ours, coworkers, and we had to get on a flight to Buenos Aires the next day, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, because what we were doing, we had no question what we were doing was important. You don't question on a day-to-day basis what you're doing is important, because it is.
Right.
And one piece of advice I do say to students, though, is bloom where you're planted, because the first job you have might not be your favorite, but if you do well in that job, and if you do the things that nobody wants to do,
Right.
like, you will become favorite, and that will help build your career to be a guy who can
Right.
execute on things when nobody else wanted to.
I think that's a good point, Ryan, because I see a lot of people that I talk to one-on-one about the careers and the future is they think that your first job will set up the rest of your career in that path. And that's so not true. I mean, my professor in grad school, when he saw me that I was not happy with the only job offer I got out of grad school, he said, look, your first job is not your last job. And certainly, like almost 15 years later, like I'm completely in a different field to what I've studied, what I've worked for the rest of my career. And so, like, people get, I think, bogged down in that mentality, like, oh, these are like so important steps in what I do first.
Everything is the important. No,
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
you're
like-
totally right. And like to bring about the public sector, there are so many different mission sets. It's hard
Right.
to not find something in the public
Exactly.
sector that's not going to excite you
Exactly.
and that's not going to have impact.
Right.
To your point, I thought I was going to be a trade economist once upon a time.
Yeah.
I went, when the financial crisis hit in 2008, I went to the Export-Import Bank. And while I realized, you know, my really big passion is about workforce policy, I was able to impact change on the ground for how liquidity was still going to be available to exporters, and you know, and thinking about trade finance policy. And you're not going to get the experience you're going to get anywhere else than in the public
Absolutely.
sector. It's
Absolutely.
a totally different type of experience. And it really is something that sticks with you of you want to have an impact, you want to do good things. There are so many important mission sets that need your skills to execute effectively.
Thank you both. I really enjoyed the conversation. For those of you watching or listening, this was Memos to the President with Ryan and Diana on what can we do to reshape and redefine workforce and the future of education in the age of AI.